you and I, Peter, both know that the opposite is true. You tend to become too much of an ass, and you get fired anyway. So start sharing the knowledge, start getting other people involved, become a stronger team. I'd like all of those elements of mob programming. So I think it works pretty well when you can do it.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Real Agile or BS. I'm your host, Peter Saddington, with my wonderful colleague, Bob Hartman from Agile for All. We love answering all of your Agile and Scrum related questions. And today is one that was on our backlog to talk about, but frankly, I haven't heard about it in a long time. It's this idea of mob programming. So many of you guys out there on the interwebs probably have heard of pair programming, which is stereotypically viewed as one terminal, two seats, two engineers, one coding, and one a co-pilot helping them out. Mob programming is going above and beyond that. Mob programming is everybody in the house focused on one task or one story or one issue. And I'm just going to take a first crack at it. Is mob programming agile? Absolutely it is. Do I use it a lot? Not much, frankly. I haven't heard of it in years, but I think that mob programming naturally occurs when you work with a team who understands the definition of done and understands the quality package that you guys had committed to at sprint planning. And so if your sprint planning is sufficient, if your sprint planning is well done and everyone is aligned and they know exactly what they're going to be building together by the end of this sprint, that sprint goal, that sprint package, then as we move towards that release or that demo or review towards the end of the sprint, if someone's blocked or someone's needs help, I would assume that another term for this, I think it was brought up by Stuart Ray back in the day and then repeated by Ron Jeffries and Chet Hendrickson in XP, was this idea of swarming. And so swarming is similar to mob programming, and everyone's going to help this individual out. We're self-organizing team. We realize somebody needs help, and we go and say, hey, we got you, brother. We're going to jump in and make sure that you can get this done for the entire sprint. So is it agile? Absolutely. Do I see it more of this as a self-organizing outcome of a good self-organizing team? Probably, yes. I would never look at it as a principle or a guide or a framework or a requirement of a development team to do. So I've spent a lot of time on this, Bob. Let's get your opinion.
Well, I think there's a difference between swarming and mob programming. Swarming, if I have a team of 7, for example, I might have 3 people swarm on one thing and 4 people swarm on another. Mob programming says we're literally going for a single piece flow. We're all going to work on one thing. When it's done, we all move on to the next thing. When it's done, we all move on to the next thing. And I will admit that 5, 6, 8 years ago, whenever I first heard about it, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. There's no chance. But I've seen some teams doing it now, and it's pretty amazing. I've been pretty surprised at how well it works for teams that do it and do it well. And I think they have certain characteristics. One is the teams that do it well, they're really all what you would call full stack developers. They understand the entire system. They really all understand their system, not just how to program at all the different levels, but they understand their system. And that's really helpful in these particular teams. And I've also seen teams bring somebody new in, and it helps get that person up to speed because they just work on everything. They're an integral part of the team from day one. So it's an interesting concept. Is it agile? For sure. Definitely an agile construct. Can it be used in non-agile areas? Of course, just like most agile things can be. But if you just said we're doing mob programming, I wouldn't necessarily say you were agile. I would say, are you being agile as well? And the answer probably would be yes. The key thing for me from mob programming is the amount of quality you get out of it. Because you have so many sets of eyes looking at it, you're unlikely to make a stupid mistake. And then on top of that, the amount of knowledge the team now shares. So I always ask people when I go into companies, how hard is it for you to take a vacation? What do you know that no one else knows? Well, on a mob programming team, the answer is nothing. Everybody knows everything. So going on vacation is no big deal. And in today's world, you work from home or work from anywhere all the time. That's great, but you still need downtime during the year to recharge. It's just human necessity. And I cringe every time somebody says, well, I'm going on vacation next week, but I got to bring my laptop. Well, that's the world you created. How do
Mm.
you create a different world? Do something like mob programming. Make it. It's people seem to think when they're the only ones who know, they're the important person or they can't be fired. And you and I, Peter, both know that the opposite is true. You tend to become too much of an ass and you get fired anyway. So start sharing the knowledge, start getting other people involved, become a stronger team. I'd like all of those elements of mob programming. So I think it works pretty well when you can do it.
I really appreciate your vantage point. You actually kind of picked it up from where I left it off, is that I've never used it as a framework or a guiding framework for development, right? We're going to do mob programming. Your example was that you've seen companies that have had teams that really have created a flow mechanism where it's like, let's crush this, get it done, crush this, get it done. And it's assembly line-ish. Now, I've never encountered a company that has that type of, let's just say, system flow. Or value chain, I guess, or value system. So I've never seen it. I would assume that it works effectively well, but I guess it's hard for me to, when you were describing that, Bob, it was hard for me to conjure up a situation with deep software development where that would be the best mechanism to complete the work. I was having a hard time conjuring that up. So I don't know the context in which you've experienced that before. I believe it's certainly agile as long as there's quality work that's getting done in an iterative fashion for sure. But I've never seen it as an institutionalized framework for development. I think I've always seen it as an emergent thing that happens naturally as people get stuck or the teams raise their hand and say, hey, I need help. And so that we all mob on it. But again, I've never even used that word. So I feel like mob programming kind of harkens back to like brown bag lunches. Like no one says brown bag lunches, but you and I remember those times in the 90s when they're like, let's do a brown bag lunch. What are they called now? Like lunch and learns or something like that. But it seems like old vernacular to me, but I'll give you the final word, Bob, before we close it out.
Well, I think, Peter, the thing about mob programming is it's based on Little's law, and you like laws, right? So the more things in process, the slower they go. So if we only have one thing in process, it'll go as fast as it can. So single piece flow is a desirable state. The other thing that it's based on is that if I have three things and they're ordered from most important to least important, why should I touch any of the other ones until I get number one done? Because if I don't get number one done, I can't deliver my maximum value. So they're taking those two things and combining them. So theoretically, it's a good system. The places where I've seen it working, it's worked really, really well because people have bought into the concept that it is better to do one thing well than three things mediocre. And everything is about them feeling like they've done their best job. Did they get comfortable with it right away? No chance. It is not comfortable. Any developer that comes out of college, any developer been doing it a while, you've been working primarily on your own, maybe with a pair. Suddenly having 6 or 7 people looking at the same thing and trying to solve a problem is very different, but also it's very good for everyone's ego because everyone has input. So when I've seen it work, it has worked phenomenally well. I really congratulate the people who came up with it as a concept because I was a naysayer for a long time until I saw it physically in action. And now I mention it in pretty much all my classes. I say, hey, there's pair programming, and then there's this thing called mob programming, and it works. It sounds really silly on the surface of it, but I'll tell you it works. So if you want to try it for a sprint or two, see what happens, I would not discourage that in any of my clients.
And that is what was in my gut. And I think it's a great way to finish this out here. I think it's an awesome opportunity for an experiment. So if you're a Scrum Master out there, management, leadership, I think this is a great way to, and I think if you're going to sell it, you brought it up, which I completely agree with. It's a reduction of tactical team level risk, right? When everyone knows what's going on from each other, everybody wins, right? If Jim steps out this week for a vacation and then Susie's out the next weekend, it's okay. We've spent enough intentional time mobbing. I kind of like that now. Mobbing the work so that we have reduced tactical risk exposure if someone's out. So this is a great way of sharing the knowledge, sharing the load, learning from each other, right? Knowledge share, knowledge transfer, these types of things. So I think it's a great experiment. And actually, now that we've talked about it, Bob, you and I know we're working with clients and we run teams. I think I might actually add this in to one of my team sprint retrospectives, see whether it's something that we want to do. So mob programming.
Hey, Peter, think about how quick the daily scrum is. Yesterday, we all worked on this. Today, we're all going to work on that. done, out the door. Let's go work.
You know what? As you know me, I like as fast as we can get back to building and stop giving useless updates. I'm all about that. But you know what? Everybody out there, we're just two guys on the interwebs who love Agile, love Scrum, have been doing it for decades. And we have opinions, we have experiences, but we don't know everything. So let us know in the comments below. Let us know in our forums. If you haven't gone there before, you can check out agileforall.com, click on the forum, sign up. You can ask your question there, smash the like button, and we'll see you guys in the next one.